Ella Stapleton is someone who's had a fair bit of skepticism about AI over the past couple years, especially when she watches people in her life using it for all kinds of tasks. Like when she was playing a board game with her boyfriend.
So I was playing that game, my boyfriend was here, we were playing it, and he's quite into AI. It's kind of a joke between us because he'll literally use it for everything. And I'm like, you can't be serious.
Ella graduated from Northeastern University a couple months ago. Now she's back home in London, figuring out what she'll do next. She's leaning toward trying to go to law school. The game they were playing was that one that's a cross between Gin Rummy and Mahjong, which I think is called Rummy Cube. Ella pronounces it Rummy Cub.
Anyways, he took a picture of his tiles that he hadn't placed yet. Basically, you win the game by getting rid of your tiles. You make them, you place them into combinations and sequences. He took a picture of his tiles and the board, the place tiles that we had, and he put it into ChatGPT and said, he wasn't doing it in the moment, but he took the picture, and then after the game was done, which I won, obviously, after the game was done, because I didn't use AI, after the game was done, he put it in and it just didn't know anything. It was saying, you can put this orange 2 here, and it's that's not how you play it. So then I was speaking to my dad about it, about that the other day, and I was saying, I always think that these machines come across as if they're a bit overconfident. For example, I think ChatGPT in that sense should have said, I don't know how to play Rummikub, instead of giving you a BS answer.
Yeah, instead of actually giving you bad advice.
Exactly.
In this case, yeah.
So I kind of always felt that way.
I feel like some days, at its worst, it's the worst member of your bar trivia night.
Yeah, totally.
Who is oh, I know this.
I know.
Trust me. And you're okay.
And it's completely wrong.
Unlike her boyfriend, Ella says she does not use AI very much. And she wonders if maybe it's all a bit overhyped. But artificial intelligence did end up playing an unexpected role in a class that she took in her final semester of college earlier this year. In fact, what happened to her in that one class ended up sparking a huge discussion online about misuse of AI in education. Not by students trying to cheat, but by professors using AI to outsource parts of their jobs. Hello and welcome to Learning Curve, where we look at what it means to teach and learn in the age of generative AI. I'm Jeff Young. Okay, so this story involves a course that Ella took on organizational behavior. She was a psychology major, but this was a required course in her minor of business. She says the professor used class time pretty informally, mainly for class discussion.
He had a huge personality and everyone was relaxed. And so it was kind of like a casual class in that sense. And so we would have a lot of relaxed conversations.
It seems like this was a course where the professor had some fans and others who found the whole thing hard to follow. In some of the anonymous reviews that were posted on Rate My Professors, for instance, some students called him disorganized and confusing. But there's a review by a student who wrote, "If I could take him again, I absolutely would. He truly wants students to learn things through experience rather than from a textbook. So the class is very entertaining. Consisted of lighthearted and interesting discussions on everything and fun activities. Provided that you match his enthusiasm, you will get an A." Ella was one of the students who was less enthusiastic and found the teaching style confusing.
The class time was never spent on content, and it was spent on silly discussions, and the tests were really difficult. Really difficult. I got a B in the class. I've never ever gotten a B in other college class.
So because she says she felt like the class discussions weren't preparing her for the exams and the tests in the class, she relied more heavily on the materials the professor sent students every week via the course management system.
And there were 2 types of information posted. There was always the weekly, I think we had class twice a week. There was always the weekly presentation or slideshow, which would cover those 2 classes for the week. And then there was a condensed version, or a Word document version without any graphics or without any colors, of just black and white text. And I would always prefer to look at the black and white text because why not?
It's a fast way for you to just get the information.
Exactly, it's a lot easier.
Well, at least she figured that would be easier. But Ella says that she found herself struggling to follow these handouts.
It seemed like the words were losing meaning. Like I would read a sentence and think to myself, what does that mean? Like lots of the sentences had no meaning. And so I would be taking notes on my laptop and like I would keep deleting things because I'm like, that doesn't actually mean anything.
Ella emailed me a couple of examples of these, and I'll say they definitely had a sterile feel. I mean, there was a lot of jargon that I didn't follow because I wasn't in the class, but in one part describing a particular leadership style, the notes gave an example of a leadership style saying, a leader exhibiting avoidance may learn to proactively address issues by practicing structured problem-solving techniques. Then one day, she noticed something really unusual.
And then I was reading through this document. It's like weeks 7 and 8, which I guess is a bit maybe late February. And I'm scrolling through it. I'm on it right now. I'm scrolling through. And then it's like, let me know if you need further expansion or additional examples. And then it's 4.0, next line, you said, next line, expand on all areas, be more detailed and specific. Next line, ChatGPT said, next line, lecture notes, comprehensive understanding of leadership models and tools. And then the second half of the document is the first half of the document, but expanded, as he'd asked.
So it's you're getting this moment behind this curtain of
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Because everything like fell into place. I was like, no wonder it doesn't make any sense. He's not even written it. It's like, everyone knows how ChatGPT writes or how different AI models write. And that was the notes, even the formatting. I immediately knew that it was wrong.
So you felt this is, I want to zoom in on this a little bit because your reaction was that this isn't right. What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
You know, for a school that is so expensive, I calculated that the class costs over $8,000. I think actually it might have been around $11,000.
For the one class you're taking.
For the one class, which lasts for 3 months. It's an absurd amount of money, even for that one class. And ChatGPT is free. Like when you pay tuition to a university, you basically enter a contract with them saying, in exchange for tuition, I expect, and this is outlined on Northeastern's website, as I'm sure it is on every university. It's like when you pay tuition, they give you knowledge, teaching, whatever. But like that wasn't happening here. And so why am I paying?
This student then went back and looked at the slides the professor had been sending as well, which she hadn't really paid much attention to. And they also had an AI-generated feel, but she wasn't totally sure she could prove that.
And so my brother, who's a couple of years younger than me, and he's really clever and into this stuff. And so he had the ingenious idea to go on some presentation makers and basically prompt them to make, like I went on like 10 or 15 AI presentation makers and prompted them all. I said, hi, I'm a professor of, I teach organizational behavior at Northeastern University. Please make me a presentation for week 1 of the class. I think that's all I said. I could have also said, I don't think I did, but there's a chance that I also said I wanted to cover A, B, and C, like really general topics. I don't think I did though. Anyways, I finally got to this one called Gamma, which produced the exact same presentation as the one that we had.
The bot made the same presentation from
exactly.
this.
Yeah,
prompt.
Totally. It's completely identical. The formatting, I'll send them both to you, but the formatting where the name is, like even like it has a little icon next to the name, it's the exact same. And then also the content, they have the exact same pages with the exact same like triangle outline with like different things on a hierarchy. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. How would you describe that feeling, I guess, of like?
It was weird. It kind of felt like I had discovered like a big like drug ring. Like it was weird. I was like,
this is how it's working. Even though that's not what you would think.
Yeah. It was, yeah, I also felt like, oh my God, I'm going to get in trouble. Like, I felt like I was doing something illegal. That's what it felt like.
Like you had found something out that you shouldn't know.
Yeah, totally. I was like, oh my God, like, is there any chance that like they can see my laptop screen right now and they can see what I'm doing?
Oh, and as Ella was making this discovery that her professor was probably using AI to do his work, she also remembered that this class, like so many college classes these days, had a policy on AI use.
He had a strictly no AI policy.
Was that surprising compared to your other classes, or?
No, it wasn't surprising. I didn't even read it. It's like, but I think that he made a comment one time that really stuck out to me because I had never really heard a professor like talk down to their students in that way, or like pass judgment, I guess.
Was he trashing students? What was it like?
He wasn't trashing a specific students in the class, but he was basically saying, if you rely on AI, you've got bigger problems or something like that. But his policy where he forbade AI was in the syllabus, which like you're supposed to read, but no one reads it. But I'm sure that every single class I've ever taken has had that policy.
I reached out to the professor, really hoping to talk to him. His name is Rick Arrowwood, and he's an adjunct in the business school. But he declined to do an interview, and his only comment on the record was, "I genuinely wish Ella my very best." But this professor did talk to a New York Times reporter who first covered Ella's story back in May. The Times story was written by one of my favorite tech reporters, Kashmir Hill. In the article, Arrowwood is described as contrite. And he says he uploaded his own notes into various AI tools, including ChatGPT and the presentation software Gamma, to, quote, give them a fresh look. And he said, at a glance, they look great. In hindsight, I wish I would have looked at it more closely, he said. The article adds that he put the materials online for students to review, but emphasized he did not use them in the classroom because he prefers classes to be discussion-oriented. And when you read in the New York Times, the professor interviewed, how does that strike you?
It strikes me, I think it's insane. The part where he says, I wish I had looked at it more closely. I think he should delete the words more and closely because I don't think he looked at it at all. Because if anyone who actually cared about what it was producing looked at it, they wouldn't accept it. And I think it was, in a way, very lucky that prompt was left in those notes because they allowed me to figure it out. And I hope that his class content is better in the future for other students who pay that much money.
For this episode, I knew from the start that I wanted to try to put this student's experience in context and go a little deeper into the bigger issues at play here. So I reached out to Mark Watkins, who spends a lot of his time these days training professors in AI literacy. His job is Assistant Director of Academic Innovation and Director of the Mississippi AI Institute at the University of Mississippi. He also teaches writing and rhetoric there, and he writes one of my favorite email newsletters about AI called Rhetorica. It turns out that Mark Watkins was already very familiar with Ella's story, since he had read that New York Times article when it came out earlier this year. In fact, that's an article that he talks about with his students.
We have a conversation. I said, how would you guys feel if I used AI to build a presentation for you? I did right in front of it. I used Gamma just to do it in like 3 seconds. So they can have this sort of ooh and ah sort of feeling too. And, and then I said, well, how would you feel if I just started talking from this? And one of my students said, well, I wouldn't feel like you knew what you were basically saying. I feel like you were basically a fraud because you were basically just making this stuff up. And so we kind of kept on going down the rabbit hole. And I finally said, how would you feel if I gave you guys feedback using generative AI, but it looked like it came from me? And one of the students said, she said that her father had sent her here and was paying quite a bit of money to come here, and said that she's told her specifically she's not to use AI because of the college experience. If her father found out that a teacher was using AI on her, a college professor, he would pull her out of the classroom, out of the school so quick. It wouldn't even be funny.
Because the parent would be so upset about what they were getting for the cost.
Yeah, you're using a tool, a system that is machine intelligence. It's not human intelligence, and it's designed to mimic that sort of experience. And I think it is very possible that this overuse of it is going to erode relationships between student and teacher, and also make students start thinking about the actual experience they're having in college.
After the break, we'll look at what Ella did next. And we'll dig deeper into how AI is impacting the relationship between professors and their students. Stay with us. Hey everyone, this is where the ad spot is going to be. For now, I just want to remind listeners that there are many ways to support this independent podcast. You can sign up for Learning Curve Plus on Patreon, and you'll get bonus episodes and just help make this show possible. And please subscribe to the new Learning Curve newsletter as well. You can find more on both at learningcurve.fm. That's learningcurve.fm. Ella says she's not the kind of person to sit back when something like this happens. So she asked her academic advisor how she could lodge a formal complaint. And Ella had a very clear demand for a remedy.
I asked for a refund for my entire class because I felt like technically that's what the school owes you if they're not providing what you've paid for.
So not just for you, but for the whole class?
Yeah, for the entire class, which I knew that they wouldn't do. They would never do that, but it was just for the principal.
But you think that's a fair way to go about it because you feel like they didn't deliver what they promised.
Because I find it really frustrating because, I think this is going to sound silly, but consumer rights, for example, why don't they apply as strongly to students? Like if you're a student, you pay for education, you're paying for a product. If you don't get that product in some way, or even in a way as severe as this, something has to, people just think it's life that and part of it is definitely life. Nothing's perfect, etc. You get what you get. But I definitely thought that the entire class should be refunded.
In some ways, the scenario at Northeastern is something that experts predicted would happen as soon as generative AI started emerging. Mark Watkins points to one opinion piece in 2022 written by Mark Sharples, an education researcher at England's Open University.
And in that opinion piece, he basically said, the existential problem is students are going to be using AI in their assessments. Faculty are going to be using AI to grade and give feedback to those assessments. What's the point of higher education and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So that was early on. This commentator pointed this out, and now you feel like it's actually in the wild. There are examples of it.
It's in the wild. We've got research from Anthropic talking about actually how faculty are using it to grade. They are finding about 7% of faculty are using AI to automate and grade some sort of task.
Anthropic is one of the major AI companies these days, as you probably know. It puts out the Claude chatbot. And Mark is referring to a report that the company issued in August from user data it obtained looking at how educators were using its product.
And it was toward the end of the report too, there's I think 2 or 3 paragraphs just talking about this weird thing that popped up about assessment and automation and grading being part of what their survey results were. About 7% of the chats that they were analyzing that have been anonymized from across the world indicated that faculty were using this in that capacity. And they didn't know from the survey results too, if they were being disclosed to students. They didn't know if faculty were still in the loop to actually validate the grade. There's a lot of caveats there, but still it's really concerning because, this tool, this technology, it's not like a calculator. I wish people would stop saying that. This is the entire suite of processes that we do daily with ourselves. It can automate your email, can do letters of recommendation, it can grade for you, it can do all these things. And the one thing to pick up on the Kashmir Here piece that I think a lot of people missed is that the teachers they use that were sort of called out for AI usage, they were all contingent faculty members. They were all people that were there in adjunct capacities too. They were not being paid full time. So I think we're going to see the intersection of labor and also automation that's very enticing to people too, really begin to head very quickly.
Say more about why, and more than half of faculty in the United States are now adjuncts.
70% of faculty.
70%. Wow.
70%. It is mind-boggling how many are contingent faculty members. 70% of higher education faculty.
Why are you pointing out that in this context? So, because I think I want to be clear on, why that's worth underlining.
Well, I think labor is going to be a huge thing we're talking about in terms of how people are using generative AI tools, both in higher education, outside of it too. The big concern I have is that since higher ed has gone to a process where we're hiring people from one semester to the next, sometimes, those contracts aren't even renewed for the entire year. When you have a tool or technology that can make your sort of task cheap, easy to use, it's very enticing for those people that have been told by their institutions that their labor isn't valued to just sort of offload that completely to a machine. So I think we kind of are in a little bit of a nightmare scenario here too of our own making, where we have created the situations where the material conditions of our labor can now be automated away, and we haven't been able to basically have the sort of persuasion to talk to people about how that's a very bad idea.
Before I even had my interview with Ella, I actually reached out to Mark and asked him, what should I ask this student? And his big question that he suggested I asked was whether Ella would have been as upset if her professor had disclosed his use of AI, if he had been open about how he was using it. That is something that I did ask her, and so I played the response for Mark.
That wouldn't have been a problem because I'd had classes even the previous semester and that same semester who had said that I used AI on this presentation, or don't be surprised if something looks wrong because I'm trying out this new AI thing. And it's totally fine because they're honest about it and they tell you. And so when you see something, you're not shocked. But when someone deceives you, and I think I can say purposefully, because that comment he made about, people over relying on AI, they must be stupid or whatever. You wouldn't make that comment and not think about the fact that you're using AI for all of your content. Like, it was obvious, to me, it was deceit.
Yeah. So it's funny because I don't know. Were you surprised by the worst use of that word deceit here?
I'm not surprised at all, too. I feel like a lot of students would feel that way, too. And I think that we would feel it outside of education, too. We have news reports every month about police officers using this for crime reports, lawyers using it for arguing cases, judges in some cases using it. I think one of the most hilarious ones, too, is your real estate agent using it to market your house to and actually generate a contract with you. It's one thing if you disclose this and talk to people about. That's what we should be aiming for, is the baseline ethical sort of understanding of it. It's another thing if you don't talk about with people too, if you just let this be sort of a stand-in for your own sort of work, your own sort of intelligence too, that can create a huge level of problems. So when I go talk with faculty about this, when I talked even to administrative leadership today, I said, look, the baseline that we all have to come to agreement on is that we need to be disclosing when we're using these tools. We need to have a conversation about this. We need to start bringing that up. And for us in higher education, especially for faculty, we've got to stop thinking about this as just using ChatGPT to cheat. We're going to have to start thinking about generative AI as a system that people are going to be used or confronted with too, that they're going to have to navigate and make some choices about too. And you're not going to have those open conversations with students or with faculty, for that matter, too, if everyone isn't disclosing this. You have to really adopt that principle of open disclosure, too, going forward. And you have to really have this situation, too, where if people aren't disclosing their use of AI, you have to basically tell them, like, look, this is not part of our newly designed social contract, which you just invented 5 minutes ago. But that's part of how we are basically trying to set up some parameters around this.
One of the things Mark pointed out is that a lot of our conversations around this issue have lagged behind the technology. Much of the way we think about AI in education these days has focused on text. But AI is quickly moving beyond text.
This isn't just going to be about text. It's not just about instructional design. You're going to have, in some cases, really advanced multimodal capabilities where people's voices are not going to be their own. And that's going to really talk about disclosure in a whole new light.
Yeah. I mean, you've mentioned agents, you mentioned multimodal. Like, it's interesting that, I think it was maybe even one of your Substacks where you mentioned that we're still talking about AI in this very text-based way as it's moving, already advancing to these new forms that are, add more layers to the conversation, I guess.
Yeah, it adds more layers. And, Grammarly's now got an AI grading tool that students use. Faculty don't use it, but students use it. And it uses an agent to pull the public information from that professor's profile and gives a predicted grade based on that. So that public profile includes rate my professor comments as well, too. So, this is really a jagged frontier. It changes constantly. And we just need to start approaching it with a little bit more humility, I think, in our classrooms, especially from faculty perspective too, saying like, look, I need to spend some time talking with my students about this, regardless of what discipline I'm teaching to, regardless of myself. And I need a lot more resources from my university than just saying, here's a ChatGPT subscription, go wild with it. You need to actually have time and space to start working on these challenges because AI is creating more and more work for people across the board, is what we're seeing from the other basic news articles. The things we're seeing is now work slop, which I think a lot of this is an example of. You have slides that have errors within them too. When you have communication that isn't great too, that you have to spend time going through this. The university had to spend a lot of time and man hours managing this situation too, because someone was using AI in a way too that really upset one of their stakeholders, in this case, their students. So I think we have to be really cautious about these sort of ideas too, about the tech companies basically saying, AI is going to be a salve that's going to fix education. That's not going to be the case. It's going to cause us to do a lot more time, a lot more resources just navigating this technology.
Yeah. No, I saw, you probably saw the HBR article, the Harvard Business Review article about work slop and the hidden costs of AI that may not be accounted for. That Harvard Business Review article really struck me. It was called AI-Generated Work Slop is Destroying Productivity, and it described a recent survey of U.S. employees across a range of industries that found that 40% of the people surveyed had gotten work slop in the last month. They defined work slop as AI-generated work content that masquerades as good work but lacks the substance to meaningfully advance a given task.
Yeah, it's a huge problem too. And then people have to go in and basically clean up the mess. In this case, it rose to the massive proportions because the New York Times wrote a story about it too. The university had to get involved too. Student asked for a refund in the class too. So I think there's a lot of conversations about this, that if this technology is being used in ways that are costing people more time and institutions more time too, then we need to have some more strict guidance and actually support for that guidance to go through this too.
So what was the guidance at Northeastern University? Was that professor breaking the college's policy by using AI without disclosure? I reached out to officials at Northeastern and asked that question, and a bunch of others. I was really hoping to get someone there to answer questions, even if not about this case, just about their policies. A spokesperson wrote back and said only, "We're not able to grant you an interview at this time," and pointed me to some previous comments the university made to other news organizations. So the statement that they did point to was by Northeastern University's Vice President for Communications, Renata Newell, and the statement said, quote, "Northeastern embraces the use of artificial intelligence to enhance all aspects of its teaching, research, and operations. The university provides an abundance of resources to support the appropriate use of AI and continues to update and enforce relevant policies enterprise-wide." So yeah, that's the only answer they would give, despite my sending many specific questions about this situation. And I do want to make clear that not everyone thinks this professor at Northeastern did something wrong. One professor interviewed in that Times article I mentioned said that as long as the professor edited what the AI output was to include his own expertise, it was fine. It fit in a long tradition of adapting materials for use in class, like case studies or parts of books or other published material. And some experts have noted that when professors use AI to do something like make a lecture slide, that's a very different case than when a student uses AI to write a paper, because that student use is preventing the student from learning something, because they're basically just clicking a button. In other words, student AI misuse can prevent learning, where a professor already supposedly knows the material, so they're in a very different situation. But I'm sure most people are wondering at this point, what happened with Ella's complaint?
I received an email the day after graduation, maybe, from, I can't remember if it was the dean of the business school, someone very high up in the business school who, after a few months, my complaint had finally reached. And he said, "We've come up with a solution. Can you meet?" Anyways, I went to meet with him the next day. I think after this was 2 or 3 days after graduation. And I knew that it would be nothing. And it technically was not nothing, but it basically was nothing.
The university said they were not giving her money back for this class or any of the students. As to what happens to this professor, they said something about they'd keep an eye on him, but even that was unclear to Ella.
One of the biggest issues was that technically, because Northeastern didn't have an AI policy at the time, even though AI had been around for, like you said, a few years, and they claim to be such leaders in AI and innovation, somehow they didn't have an AI policy. And so it made it complicated because technically he is not forbidden from using AI.
It seems like the university changed its policy on AI after Ella made her complaint. No idea whether there's connection there. The current policy, which was revised on March 31st, it does say that professors should provide appropriate attribution when using an AI system to generate content that is included in a scholarly publication or submitted to any body, publication, or other organization that requires attribution of content authorship. I'm guessing that could apply to teaching materials, but I'm not totally sure. And the policy says that anyone at Northeastern who uses AI in their work should check regularly for, quote, accuracy and appropriateness. The policy reads, as a relatively new technology, we must also use AI in a manner that is consistent with university policies and applicable laws, protects our confidential information, personal information, and restricted research data, and appropriately addresses any resulting risks to the university and our community. So we're in a time where the rules are being written as the situations play out. It does seem like talk of AI is everywhere these days. In fact, Ella was surprised when AI turned out to be the theme of the commencement address at her graduation from Northeastern. The big commencement speech was given by her university's president, Joseph Aoun.
Can I play a short clip of that?
Yeah, please do, because I honestly, it went in one ear and out the other. I think it was the only point.
Can you hear it?
These are powerful learning experiences. In today's roller coaster world, they are priceless. Artificial intelligence grows more powerful by the day. Some experts say it will have a bigger effect than electricity. Other experts say it will disrupt or eliminate the overwhelming majority of jobs that are waiting for you. It may do both. Your Northeastern education will help you navigate the AI revolution, its transformations and opportunities. This education is your lifelong bedrock. 4 strong foundations, I call the 4 C's, make it unique. The first C is curiosity.
You know, I will put it in the show notes. I don't want to get too deep into the whole thing, but just to jog your memory.
Yeah. I had forgotten, thankfully.
And so, you know, and it sounds like the rest of your education at Northeastern was more what you expected and maybe more.
Yeah, it was. I had a couple incredible professors. A few of who I'm still in contact with.
He's kind of, the gist of the argument is that, you know, you got to be human, you got to, you know, use the tools and enhance your humanity instead of, you know, and that it's going to be okay, I guess, to put it super blandly.
Yeah.
And that there's excitement in this new innovation.
I don't know that that's not really what I took from it.
Well, what did you take from it, actually? What did you take from his address, if you can remember back?
I took, and my friends sitting around me took the fact, we were surprised by it. I think that his wording in parts was shocking. For example, the sentence that we just heard, it's going to take your jobs. It's like, oh, how inspiring is that?
A little blunt.
It's a bit strange. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with the sentiment, but I think you have to be really careful with how and when you say things, especially to such an impressionable crowd. What I took from it was a kind of a warning, and I'm not sure I took it that way because I knew it was going to happen in the next couple days, but I took it that way because
a warning about what? A warning of what?
A warning. It kind of felt like he was trying to like grab us by the shoulders and like wake us up. Like it felt a bit not condescending, but it felt a bit like he, for whatever reason, assumed that like we have no idea how big of a deal AI is or is going to be.
And it sounds like you're as if like students don't know. Like it sounds like students are very aware that AI is a thing.
Exactly. Like,
It might disrupt your job.
also it's like we know about it. Like students use it every single day. Like we know exactly what it can do. It's like, I don't know, it felt like almost like, I'm sure he knows it a lot, way more about AI than I do, but it almost felt like, I don't know, it was weird. It's like we know, like we see it every day on social media, and we see it every day. Like we know that this is happening. So like, why wouldn't you take the opportunity to inspire us or give us some words of wisdom? Instead, you're like giving us a lecture about what you think about AI.
I listened to the speech and I took it as an attempt to reassure students that the university degree that they got was going to prepare them for this time of disruption. But one thing Ella's story makes clear is that universities, they're facing as big a disruption as their students when it comes to AI. Maybe bigger or more direct. And they are really struggling to adjust. I'm curious to hear what you think about whether professors should disclose their AI use, and about these bigger issues of labor and adjuncts at colleges in this time of AI. Please send me an email to jeff@learningcurve.fm and share your thoughts. This has been Learning Curve. Please follow the show wherever you listen and tell a friend about us or share on social media to help spread the word. This episode was edited by Rob McGinley Myers. Great to be working with him again. Our music is by Kamaku, and the episode art this time was created by Nano Banana. I guess it's part of Google Gemini, I think. We'll be back in 2 weeks with more on the intersection of AI and education. Thanks for listening.